r/AskReddit. What is the most aliens did it moment in history? Tommy Wiseau. I can't believe The Room was directed by an actual human person. And clearly, the guy doesn't want to answer pretty standard questions, such as where he comes from, how old he is, and where he got his money. An alien. Paul Hellyer, the former Minister of Defense for Canada, made a speech in front of some government body, seems to be in the US, where he claimed to have knowledge of aliens having contacted us and there being a concerted effort to hide the fact from the general public. Not quite aliens did it, but sort of on topic enough where I wanted to share it. I read about this temple, somewhere near Turkey, that was supposedly built around the time when humanity was still in its forager/nomad phase. The dates match up apparently, and there's really no reason for hunter/gatherers to get the idea to create a temple so they can practice religion or something. It was just too early in history for humanity to be thinking of that. It's like a game of Civilization, where you somehow managed to skip to one of the later research areas without having learned the previous ones to unlock it. Nazca lines. I mean, not only are there insane amounts of razor straight lines crisscrossing like runways, there are also giant pictures of various animals that are only visible from above. Not to mention this all being in the middle of a very arid desert. Sacsayhuaman in Cusco, Peru. Walls made of massive blocks of stone, some weighing over 100 tons, shaped to fit together absolutely perfectly. You cannot fit a fucking toothpick between those blocks. The Egyptian pyramids I can understand, constructed through a combination of good planning, sheer will and backbreaking labor, but these things? How? How did they shape all those stone faces to match perfectly? How did they then set the stones down in place so goddamn perfectly? I just can't get over it. The things that get me are ancient sites like Göbekli Tepe, evidence of jewelry found in Denisovan caves, megalithic structures on the Pacific Islands, megalithic structures well underwater. Maybe not aliens, but there is something from our history we are missing. Like another advanced civilization before us. There's evidence of the Younger Dryas event. How did the Sumerians know about every planet in our solar system? All that kind of shit. In their writings, they were told by the gods. One I always like to think of was the Tunguska event in Russia. A meteor crash lands in a forest, levels 2k square kilometers by bending the trees flat, and that's it. It's just there. No crater because the rock itself is theorized to have exploded above the surface, and the flat land is due to the airburst itself. To me it just shouts how we kind of wanted to land, then fucked up somewhere mid-decent and decided to leave instead because Russians are scary. Not sure if it was a hoax or I misread, but didn't we also find pyramids on one of the poles recently? Baalbek in Lebanon. Base stones weigh over 750 tons, were quarried miles away and transported over at least 2 rivers. Pumapunku in Peru. Multiple granite blocks cut and carved in ways that would be challenging for today's technology in assembly line precision. The Antikythera mechanism, the most out-of-place artifact ever. It's a functioning mechanical astronomical calendar, the only problem that it's from the 2nd century. It's an analog computer, millennia ahead of anything else, with no other artifacts remotely similar, or anything written referencing its existence. Aliens, time travel, or both. The Aurora, Texas UFO crash. This happened well before there was manned flight, so it couldn't have been misidentified as an actual aircraft. They buried the pilot under a tree in a cemetery. Roughly 15 or 20 years ago, a group was investigating this incident. They got permission to dig up the area where the pilot was believed to be buried. When they went out the next morning to start digging, the area had already been dug up and everything was gone. That's pretty crazy in my opinion. Humans having only 23 pairs of chromosomes. Think of this, our primate relatives have 24 pairs of chromosomes. Biologists have determined that part of human evolution meant we went from 24 to 23 pairs of chromosomes, and that this shift happened with no unhealthy side effects. This means at some point in our evolutionary history enough hominids were born with 23 chromosome pairs, instead of the 24 that their parents had, that they were able to find mates and produce offsprings who also only had 23 pairs of chromosomes. It is currently unknown what type of environmental pressure would force chromosome pairs to merge on such a species-wide level. So, I believe it if this was caused by aliens. When the first pulsar was observed, Bernal did not really believe that she had picked up signals from another civilization, but the idea had crossed her mind. She had no proof that it was an entirely natural radio emission. The new object was dubbed Little Green Men, LGM, as a reference to extraterrestrial life. The wow signal is the most famous aliens did it moment. As of today, it remains the strongest and clearest narrowband radio signal ever received from an unknown source outside of our solar system. I've always thought the Dyatlov Pass incident was really weird. 9 very experienced hikers all go crazy, ripped their tent open from the inside, ran nearly naked out into the snow, their bodies found strewn across the mountainside, some of them pretty much mutilated with tongue and eyes missing. Other injuries were a fractured skull, and 2 of the members had major chest fractures that a doctor said could not have been caused by another human being due to the force needed to create the injury and the lack of soft tissue damage. The government officials declared the cause of death a compelling natural force. And then they closed the area down for 3 years. And to make it even weirder, they exhumed one of the bodies and ran a DNA sample. The DNA didn't match any of the guy's relatives, and the person's name, Semyon Zolotayev, is not even on the cemetery registry. The journalists thought that it was somebody hiding under his name after the war. One of the experts also stated that the injuries on the body resembled that of somebody who was hit by a car. My first thought was avalanche, but reports stated that there were no signs of an avalanche, or at least one strong enough to do that kind of damage to somebody. No scattered debris, damaged trees, and more of the hikers having severe injuries. Also, the bodies were only covered in a very thin layer of snow, and the slopes of the area aren't steep enough to pose a high risk of avalanche. Crazy stuff, man. I've always liked the theory that printed circuit boards were a technology recovered from the Roswell crash. Before then it was all wires, as you can see if you go to a computer museum. I like the idea of our age of information processing being jump-started by reverse engineering a flying saucer. Ancient text from all over the world accurately describe nuclear explosion 5,000 years before we even imagined them. On the shores of the Dead Sea, scientists have found tektites, harboring radioactive isotopes of aluminium and beryllium. These mysterious tektites could have formed only under conditions of extremely high temperature and nuclear radiation no less powerful. In other words, conditions similar to those prevailing in a thermonuclear explosion. Ancient text from that area. Gurkha suddenly appeared in his powerful Vimana and destroyed the 3 cities of the Varishes and Andakas with a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. An incandescent column of smoke and flames as bright as 10,000 suns rose in all its splendor. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a messenger of death which reduced to ashes the entire race of Varishas and Andakas. The corpses were so burned that they were unrecognizable. Their hair and nails were falling out, radiation poisoning, the pottery broke for no apparent reason, radiation decay, and the birds turned white, gene mutation. After a few hours, all food was infected. To escape this fire, soldiers threw themselves into rivers to wash their bodies and their equipment. No need to be atomic engineer to know what's up. These lines made the exact description of a nuclear irradiation. The Christian Bible had the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed with fire and brimstone that turned the cities into salt. The cauldrons of Death Valley, Siberia. This story has always intrigued me. I wish there was more information out there about them, or there would be another search for them with modern technology. Mirny is a town in the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia, nearly 3,800 miles east of Moscow. There, in the basin of the Vilya River, Russia has its own Death Valley. In the late 19th century, Russian explorer Richard Mark recorded strange tales told by locals about paranormal activity in this place. One of the local rivers is called Olguidak, which means a place with cauldrons. Another stream is called Algiatimernit, the big cauldron sunk. Locals told Mark that giant pots are buried deep in the earth, with edges as sharp as razors, and made of red metal. Some partly stuck out of the ground, and those who spent a night under them woke up feeling ill, weak and with an aching head. In the 19th century, locals said they even encountered giant people, who were one-eyed and clad in metal, sleeping underneath the cauldrons. Probably just 19th century folktales, but still pretty cool. I think modern answers to the mystery revolve around volcanic activity pushing up gases from the ground which caused the locals nausea, paranoia and hallucinations. Thank you for watching this video and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more.